I'm Jack, and welcome back, as this time I am going to talk about The Flash Season 7. Yes, the recent season of The Flash has came to an end last night, and it is the first season we've had since the COVID pandemic, so they were heavily affected by it this season. It stars Grant Gustin, Candice Patton, Danielle Panabaker, Carlos Valdes, Jeese L, Martin, Tom Cavanagh, Kayla Compton, Brandon McKnight. It's just Danielle Nicolet, and many more. Before I start talking about this season, don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below on the bottom of the screen, so don't forget to do that while you're at it. And this is a spoiler review. The season has wrapped up yesterday. I will talk about spoilers, and I will cover it from start to finish, whether they're big or small. So if you haven't seen the season yet, go watch it if you want to, and then come back here. And then, with that out of the way, let's start talking about this season of Flash. Long story short, I was really excited for this season of Flash, especially as I really enjoyed Season 6. I thought it was the best season we've had since the first two seasons, so I was really looking forward to Season 7 before it came out. So what did I think about the season? You'll find out in a bit. I'll do that part later. Anyway, let's start out with what I think the season did well at. So, I thought the Godspeed arc in the final 4 episodes of the season was pretty good. It wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, but for what they had to work with in those 4 episodes, I thought it was fine. The Godspeed action stuff was really cool to see, and I thought it was nice having a speedster villain as the main antagonist for half a season. And I really liked Cisco's send-off, especially as he's been on the show since the beginning, and I felt like he never had as much to do on the show recently. So it feels good that they sent him off in a nice manner. So that was another good thing about the season. And, of course, Flash's suit. I know it's nothing when it comes to like writing or any of that, but I thought Flash's suit is still the best one we've had thus far on the show. It looks just like the comics. It looks great. There's one thing I wish they would add, but hopefully that happens soon. And I thought the acting for what we had to work with, it was good for the most part. Grant Gustin continues to shine as Barry Allen and our favorite superhero, The Flash, for the show. And I really liked the acting was good for the most part. The Godspeed stuff was cool. I thought the Godspeed arc in the final 4 episodes of the season was pretty good. It wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, but for what they had to work with in those 4 episodes, I thought it was fine. The Godspeed action stuff was really cool to see, and I thought it was nice having a speedster villain as the main antagonist for half a season. And I really liked Cisco's send-off, especially as he's been on the show since the beginning, and I felt like he never had as much to do on the show recently. So it feels good that they sent him off in a nice manner. So that was another good thing about the season. And, of course, Flash's suit. I know it's nothing when it comes to like writing or any of that, but I thought Flash's suit is still the best one we've had thus far on the show. It looks just like the comics. It looks great. There's one thing I wish they would add, but hopefully that happens soon. And I thought the acting for what we had to work with, it was good for the most part. Grant Gustin continues to shine as Barry Allen and our favorite superhero, The Flash, for the show. And I really liked the acting was good for the most part. The Godspeed stuff was cool. The first 2 episodes were also great, in my opinion. I thought it was because COVID happened last year with the pandemic and they got shut down, so they couldn't film the rest of season 6 as they hoped they would. They started out the first 3 episodes of the season basically trying to wrap up that storyline. I thought the first 2 episodes were great. It was really sad to see them kill off Nash Wells, and this is basically Tom Cavanagh's send-off as a main character because he's also been on the show since the beginning. And I thought episode 2 was great because you got to see a new side of Barry, where what if this is like a Barry who uses his head, not much of his heart. And it was really nice to see Barry do things, whether it works for the team or not. Oh, and Godspeed. Godspeed is fine. I was really looking forward to him when they first introduced him back in season 5, but I kind of felt like they could have used Godspeed a little bit better than what they've done. He came off as a Zoom knockoff to me because he just wants organic speed, and that's kind of like what Zoom wanted, and they didn't develop him as much. Like, we got to see like August Hart, we got to see a lot of clone in action for Godspeed, we got to see a lot of that stuff, but I feel like I wish we got a little bit more of that, and I wish they developed him more, but luckily because he's not dead, that we will eventually, hopefully he returns and they'll do him a little bit more properly than what they did. So, yeah, he leans a little bit more to the positive side because maybe while he's not character-wise, he could have been better. I thought he was cool for what we got to see him for. The 150th episode was also great. It was another milestone for the show thanks to its 7-year run. And I really liked the episode. I really thought it was really cool to see a character like Bart Allen finally show up on the show. I've been wanting to see Impulse on the show for a while, and we finally got to see it, and I thought that was great. Jordan Fisher does a terrific job as Impulse this season, and I really enjoyed what we got of him. He had great dynamic with Barry and Nora and Iris and Jay. And even with some of his scenes where he's trying to run away from Godspeed, that was really good. And he nailed the mannerisms, the recklessness of his character. And Nora was also good. I was not a fan of her in season 5 because she came off as annoying and reckless to me in a bad way. But this season, from what we saw of her this season, she's a lot more likable, a lot more mature. And I liked, of course, her dynamic with Bart. And she was good in these episodes, and that was also awesome. And when we got action sequences, they're great. Visually, they're not, of course, on the same level as seasons 1, 2, or 3, but they look good for what they have. So the action sequences are cool from time to time. And Jay Garrick, I love seeing John Wesley Shipp on the show, and he continues to shine as Jay Garrick, so it was also really cool to see him again for the first time since the first half of season 6. I also thought the finale was solid. It's not bad, but it's not anything top tier Flash or anything. So I thought it's entertaining for what it is. Sure, there are some things I'm a little puzzled by, like suddenly Kristen Kramer is a speedster. I don't know what the point of that was and all that, but it worked. I liked that the season just ends with Barry and Iris renewing their vows with the other characters around them because they never had a proper wedding. So that was a nice way to wrap up the season, I guess. Those are my positives. Hey! Oh, boy. This is, without a doubt, the worst season of the show, in my opinion. It's bad. I was really looking forward to this season, but it was a massive disappointment on so many levels. It really amazes me how they've made a season that is worse than season 5. And so let's kick him off with the first issue. Issue number 1, Power of Love. This is one of the worst, cheapest ways they could ever get them out of a climax, because episode 3 started off so strong, and then you had the climax where all of a sudden Flash and Iris convinced Eva, hey, you're not a bad person. You can stop this. Is this what you want? And then she looks around and sees all her clones terrorizing the city, and she's just like, no, this isn't what she wants. That makes no sense. Literally, look at the second half of season 6. This is the dark personality Eva that ever since the particle accelerator explosion just split from her main self. And she really shouldn't have that capability of feeling bad for what's happening in the city, but all of a sudden she does. And Flash, Eva, and Iris hold hands and destroy all the clones. It's like, woo, we saved the city. What is that? Literally, at least the Cicada arc did not do that, because this is just a really bad way. And it's really stupid too, to be honest, because, and not only that, but she even after all that, they let Eva just walk away and just go back to the Mirrorverse, free of consequence. That is not good at all. Like, Eva literally should have spent, like, say, several years in Iron Heights, because she literally trapped so many people in the Mirrorverse, nearly made Iris go insane, and trapped Camilla in there. But all of a sudden, it's like Flash and Iris were like, it was just like, yeah, we know you trapped Iris in the Mirrorverse and nearly went insane, but you helped to save the city, so you can go on your way now, not knowing all the people that she pretty much traumatized. And it's just, it's so dumb. And not only that, but they continuously use the power of love in several episodes. The next episode, they do it, where Abracadabra is about to destroy the city and all that. And Flash was like, instead of use his powers, they had to make him look like, no, he can't do anything, use a pep talk and power of love. And I swear, this is like, it's so boring to watch because it's so lazy writing, and it's just really cheap too. Because if I would not be looking at that and be like, oh, let's go with it, I would be like, no, we should not do this. This is not good. And they just went with it. And then they did it so many other times after that. It literally feels like throughout this whole arc, they were like, I don't know if it was COVID that was the problem, but all of a sudden it's like, let's just not have Barry use his powers to save the day. It's so, I just can't. I can't. It's not good at all. Please do better than this. And even in episodes like Timeless and Family Matters Part 1, I liked how they started. But once you got to that climax portion, it just went off the rails completely. Yep, it went off the rails. They decided, let's make Barry look stupid. And let's make Barry act like his team was right. Barry had the right idea. He always had the right idea. But for some reason, they had to make him act like, no, love is the way. And that the team is right. Barry is worse than them. It's just like, what is this? Like, Barry, it basically makes Timeless a pointless episode, because the whole goal was erase the forces from existence so that none of this would happen. But all of a sudden, he's like, no, that shouldn't happen. Then he just foils the plan, and then all of a sudden, boom, the episode's just pointless. It doesn't do anything. And Family Matters, I swear, not only is this probably this is my least favorite episode of the season, but it's probably my least favorite episode on the whole show. Not even joking. It's all of a sudden, they got Psych, and Fuerza is now on Flash's side. And all of a sudden, they get to him, and he's just like, power of love, don't do this, you're not a killer, and all that stuff. And I'm just like, and how does Psych succumb to it? He doesn't like his parents, and he doesn't have feelings like that. So how does all of a sudden he just succumb to the power of love? It does not make sense. And they keep doing it. I absolutely despise that so much. It is a major issue on the season, and they do it too much. And I really hope they don't do that again. Please. Issue number 2 is there's a lot of filler this season. When they announced that this season was going to have 18 episodes, I thought that's a good thing. It's going to be the shortest season yet. There would be more story to tell, and everything would be meaningful for the story. I was wrong. They literally gave us an Allegra episode, 2 Frost episodes, a Cecile episode, and then you had the Joe and Kristen Kramer plotline. Literally, all these things I listed do not do anything for both the season as a whole or even the characters. Like, they just gave Allegra her whole episode. The issue with Allegra is that she's not developed very much, and all of a sudden it's like we're supposed to care for her character, but we just don't have much development to feel for her. Like, the actress does a great job with her character, but they just haven't developed her so great, and they gave her a whole episode, and they're supposed to make us care for Ultraviolet, and it was just like, it really came off as flat to me. And the 2 Frost episodes, I love Danielle Panabaker as an actress, but the Frost episodes were just okay because they decided to give her a love interest in the form of Chilblain, and it feels awkward, strange, and looking at the whole season, it really doesn't do anything. It feels like they wanted to give her something to do and to give a reason to why they want to keep her on the show, and so they're just like, we're just going to give her this plot line. And if it tied into the overall story, that would be fine. But it doesn't at all. And it feels so weird. And then there was a logic issue that they had where all of a sudden Frost was like, I don't want to be a criminal or a killer anymore. And she's like, yeah, sure, I'll spend life in prison. None of the things that she did on the show warrant life in prison. So the fact that all of a sudden she's okay with it does not make any sense. And the fact that even the judge was like, fine, you'll get life in prison. That makes no sense. She would maybe have, like, say, a few years in jail at best. She wouldn't have life in prison just for the stuff that she did. She didn't, like, necessarily kill anybody. So it really does not make sense. And then all of a sudden, that would have been a nice way for them to get Frost out of the show. But then all of a sudden, a few episodes later, Frost is back in the picture, and now she doesn't have to go to jail anymore. It's just like, for only a few weeks, and all of a sudden, she's free. Like, I don't understand just kind of how illogical that is. And the Joe Kramer plotline, I really like Jeese L. Martin as Joe West on the show. But after the first 2 seasons, they have not really done Joe a lot of justice recently. Season 3 made him depressed because of the fear that Iris might die. And they sidelined him a lot in seasons 4 and 5. And the first half of season 6 was giving him something. And then they dropped the ball. And then season 7, you gave us this whole plot line that's supposed to be related to sort of like modern day cop issues. And all of a sudden, it doesn't do anything for the show either. It just feels like a way for them to keep the actor on the show. Even though I don't know what's the point in keeping Joe on anymore. And when he had his plotline with Kramer, where it's like they're trying to find somebody that's tied to Kramer's past, all of a sudden, that got quite a few screen time in the final 5 episodes of the season. And by the end of season 7, it means nothing. Literally nothing of importance happened with that plot line. And in the end, it just feels like a waste. You literally could just get rid of that plot line and those episodes would still be intact. Chester, so he's a new character. And, well, even though he was in season 6 for like 3 episodes, but he had an episode of his own with Cisco that for the Forces arc. And I thought that was probably the best filler episode of sorts, even though it's not really technically filler, because it pushed his character forward. It developed him, like he got over the tragic passing of his dad, and we got to see him show us that he could take over Cisco's place. So that is a pass. But there is a lot of filler this season, so whenever it doesn't focus on Barry, it just drags. The third issue is the use of Barry Allen, because this is probably the least screen time Barry's had for any season of the show. And he had pretty much little to no growth this season, because this season has to pick up the fact that he's losing his speed. He needs to get Iris out and he needs to get his speed back. But after that, he's just been that same character for the rest of the season. All we know for development wise is he helps get Iris out of the Speed Force. We had episode 2 where the artificial Speed Force was making him a little too intelligent for his own good, and he got his speed back and he renewed his vows with Iris. That is it. I might be missing something, but that's all I caught, because he literally did not have much to do all season. They literally used Flash just for the villains to basically beat him and make him look weak, when at this stage on the show, he should be so powerful, he should be so fast, and able to do anything, and not need a pep talk to get calmed down or to take down the villains, but all of a sudden, it's like he can't even do squat. Like, I don't understand how this makes sense whatsoever. And it really pains me because months before the season came out, they told us that this season was going to focus on speedsters, good or bad. That was a lie. And that Barry was going to build into that legendary leader that he's supposed to be. Also a lie. And 3, where's the golden boots? I thought we were supposed to get him this season, but we didn't get him. Like, why are we having to make him, like, wait for him to get it? Just give him the gold boots. Like, what's the meaning behind it? I don't understand. Literally, they hyped us up for so many different things with Barry, and none of that happened. It literally feels like he's just a side character on his own show. Issue number 4, the Forces arc. I was looking forward to this arc a bit, but man, that is probably the weakest arc on the whole show. Even worse than the cicadas, because they literally use so many dialogue like, hey bro, hey sis, mom, and all. I'm just like, it's so cringeworthy. Like, I get Iris and Barry created the Forces, but they didn't necessarily like birth them like that. And it feels so odd to me that all of a sudden they're just calling, the dialogue is very cheesy, very cringeworthy, and I could not really tell who the villain was. Was the villain supposed to be the Speed Force? Because if so, the Speed Force was not that great of a villain. And nothing against Michelle Harrison. She's terrific. But I don't think the writing did that any justice. And the fact that it literally has the worst climax resolutions out of any story arc on the show. Because every single episode always has to have power of love. Where Flash and them don't bother using their powers to save the day. They're just like, let's just talk them out of it with love and act like they're not meant, they don't want to do this. It's just like, it's really boring and really frustrating to see. And like, the only good episode of this arc is episode 5, Fear Me, where we first got introduced to Psyche. Because that episode, I liked how that episode was sort of like a horror or a psychological horror. And also because Barry actually used his powers and there was no power of love. Thank God. But they couldn't do that for every other episode, besides maybe the final episode of the arc. And then the Chester arc episode, which is also a part of the story, was also a solid episode. Nothing top tier, but it works for what it is. And then the final episode, I was so ready to just say adios to this arc because I literally do not want to suffer another episode of this arc again. And I was so scared that this was not going to be a good resolution or that it was going to have power of love save the day again. They were almost going to do it from what it looked like, but luckily they actually made Barry save the town and save the city with his powers. Like, is it that hard for us to just watch a Flash show where all we want to see is Barry use his powers to save the day? Like, what did we come to see? Barry use his speed to save the day? Or pep talks and power of love? I'm pretty sure the answer is not pep talks and powers of love. So, we obviously want to see Barry use his speed. And we got that from that episode. So that slightly makes the arc less unbearable than it is. Because if it ended with Power of Love, then I really would not have wanted to rewatch this arc ever. So, and again, there was bad dialogue, very uninteresting. It's kind of a slog to watch, sorry, but it's just, I really wish this arc, it could have been so much better than it is. But they did all the wrong things with this arc. Another huge issue on the show is that there's way too many characters on the show at this point. You now have Barry, you have Iris, you have Caitlin, you have Cisco, you have Chester, you have Allegra, you have Joe, you have Cecile, and then now you added in Kramer, and then you have the villain. You have just so many characters at this point, and that's not a good thing. You don't want to have too many characters. Like, some of these characters could easily be just side characters, but they're all promoted to series regulars and they just appear from time to time. And it's just like, why are there too many people here? It's just, I don't understand at all. It's such a huge issue. And the next season really needs to do something about that. We now lost Cisco and Wells. So that's 2. And there's so many characters on the show that some of these characters get sidelined for other characters. But what makes that worse is none of that is pushing Barry's arc forward. And none of it is really doing anything for the show as a whole, besides giving the actors something to do. And also just the fact that it's just so inconsistent because there's too many characters. Not all of them get screen time that they deserve, and none of them get interesting storylines that are really worth telling, and it's messy. I really hope that they start to really just... this is the thing, that's kind of the issue with Team Flash. We're at the stage where Flash should be able to do things on his own, but for some reason he's still unable to, when he should be the fastest man alive, especially as he just defeated Thawne for a second in the finale. So he would not really need a team, but all of a sudden he still has a team. It literally shows you, like, there are 2 things they could do. 2 things. You could either significantly reduce the team to just like maybe Barry and Chester or Caitlin, or just disband the team completely. Flash needs to be an independent hero, but we haven't seen any of that this season. Oh, and not only does this season have a lot of filler, but this feels like the most fillery season ever. Like, this is a season where I feel like you could skip so many episodes and you would still be all right. But I really do not know what happened with this season. I am really amazed by how much filler there is. Like, you literally only need to watch episodes 1, episode 2, maybe episode 3, and skip the Forces arc, and then just watch, like, the final, episode 12, and, like, the final 4 episodes, and, like, that's it. Because a lot of this story is so all over the place. The Godspeed should have been the overarching villain because they teased him 2 years prior to this season. And now all of a sudden you sideline him to be in like the final 4 episodes. Like, I would rather have this whole season be based off of Godspeed being a villain than whatever that Forces arc nonsense was. And the pacing of this arc is also weak because you had so much filler, so much weak storylines that don't do anything for the show. It just halts the pacing because the show only goes forward whenever it focuses on Barry and like any of the main storylines, like the Forces arc or even the Godspeed stuff. But for some reason, because we had to get like an Allegra storyline and a Joe storyline and a Frost storyline, none of those storylines do anything for any of the main storylines, nor did it do anything for the characters or even Barry. It feels like it's there just to give him something to do, and it doesn't do anything for the show, which means we could have got rid of all those storylines to make all of these things focus on elevating the Godspeed arc and even the Forces arc. And for some reason, we got all this, and it really ruins the pacing because it makes the pacing of the season really slow, and it makes the season less engaging to watch. Overall, Season 7 was a massive disappointment. It was easily my least favorite season of the show. It had so much potential to be great, but it fell very short, and I desperately hope that Season 8 is a lot better than whatever this season was. It's hard for me to say what I'm going to give this season when it comes to letter grade, but just because of how I feel, I'm going to give Season 7 a D+. If you haven't seen this current season yet, but you've watched the show, come in with lowered expectations. But overall, those are my thoughts on The Flash Season 7. Sorry that I'm a little pretty negative on it. I just did not enjoy much of the season. So I'm sorry I had to kind of be this way. I'm still going to watch the show all the way till the end because it's kind of like a commitment I've made since I started. So I'll still do that. So hopefully Season 8 is good. But let me know down below in the comments section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Season 7. Did you like it? Did you think it's okay? Or did you dislike it like I do? And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is on the bottom of the screen down below. So don't forget to do that while you're done with this video. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the season. So don't forget to hit that like button. And don't forget to share it to all your friends. And hit that subscribe button if you want to see more.